Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Desiree Roby Antila, and she's here to share with us her new book, Sun Signs in Love, Relationship Compatibility by the Stars. So Desiree specializes in sun signs and astrology relationships. She's been studying astrology for several decades through observation, research, and other methods. So let's welcome to the show, Desiree Roby Antila.
Thank you for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So what even inspired you on this path?
That's a great question. I have loved astrology since a very young age. I have been studying ever since I was about 12. So it was just a natural fascination for me, and it never left. I carried it with me all the way into my 20s, which at that point, I was starting to date and my friends were dating, and they knew, I was their friend that was into astrology. And so every time they would go on a date, they would say, Desiree, what am I like with this sign? And my friend was like, you're so good at this, you should really start a blog. And this was back in 2012 or 2011. And when blogs were all the rage. And so I did just that. I went to blogspot.com and got my little space on the internet and just started writing about, synastry and zodiac pairings. And I didn't stop, and I just wrote and wrote, and it took me about 10 years, but I did all of the astrological matches. And then I had my son, who is now 4, got married, had my son. And then I had a friend say, Desiree, you've just been sitting on these articles, you should submit them to a publisher. So both times, it's been kind of friends pushing me. And sometimes that's what it takes, which is why it's so important to surround yourself with good friends and supportive people. But so I did just that. I took my manuscript and I submitted it to a few different publishers, and my book got picked up by Llewellyn, who is actually here in Minneapolis, which is where I live. So that was very serendipitous, but it got picked up and then it was just published back in November of 2022. So here we are, over a decade later.
It's always a journey to get to a book, right? So
yeah, and everyone's journey is very different. Publishing is there's a million and one ways to do it. So that was just my personal journey. But it's makes it deeply personal, the book in general. And a lot of, the matches in my book, all 78 of them are inspired by a couple that I know or people that I know. So it's a very personal book.
I know a lot of people have some misconceptions about astrology. And what should we know about it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception when it comes to especially relationships in astrology is there's no such thing as a bad match. I know that there's a lot of misinformation out there about how certain pairings rank, I guess. Like the other day, I picked up a book and there was like a 5-star rating for each couple. And that's not really how astrology is meant to be used. And especially just basing it off of sun signs, that's kind of silly. Your birth chart is a very complex and very intricate, map. And so to just base it on your sun sign is not always the most, accurate way to go about it. So I think if there was any, misconceptions, especially around synastry and relationships, it would be to say, oh, well, I don't date that sign, or I don't, get along with that sign. So that's not really how astrology is meant to be used.
I like in your book how you talk about not meant to predict a storm, but just to tell us to bring an umbrella.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes. I think there is a lot of assumptions that, astrologers are should be the ones to tell you what or what not to do. And I don't, it's not really how this ancient, I like to call it magic, but I mean, this ancient study is meant to be used. It's to say, hey, here are some areas of opportunity, and here are your areas of strength. And it's a self-discovery tool as well. So instead, when you're doing self-discovery, it's not supposed to lead you down a path of negativity or assuming you're going to fail because you have some, hard aspects or harder things in your chart. It's really meant to be like, hey, here's an awareness, or here's like a part of your relationship that you could be aware of. And that way, if you see it, or if you see it being lived out, you can notice it and know how to navigate it.
I think that it would be so empowering for so many people to kind of watch for that shadow or things that come up that maybe would take them off their path.
Yeah, definitely. Even in my own marriage, I mean, I can give you an example. My husband has an Aries moon, which, Aries is the prime sign, right? It's the first one. It's cardinal, meaning it's, a leader, and it can be a little impulsive, right? So there are some things that I love about his Aries moon. Like, we got engaged really fast. He's always very sure about things. He takes the lead a lot. However, Aries can also be very combustible. It can also have a short fuse. So, sometimes when I see his temper flare, I'm like, oh, there's his Aries moon, and then it's over. Like, that's kind of how Aries, they move on really fast from things. So, and or if he has an idea, it's like, it's happening, and I'm like, oh, here we go. There's his Aries moon getting initiated or getting activated. So, it's fun watching your partner live out their chart. And also even their children. It doesn't even need to be romantic. My son's chart, I have it memorized, of course, like the back of my hand, and knowing how to navigate, some of the things he does or likes or, is interested in it. It's fun to watch that, him live his chart out.
So if someone doesn't know what their sun sign is, how do they go through the process of discovering that?
Yeah, so it is always best to have your for that information. You'll need the day of birth, the time and the location of your birthday. And then what you would do is there's tons of free sites online. My favorite free one is Astro Charts. So it's astro-charts.com, and you just plug in all of your personal information and you can see your entire birth chart for free.
That is so great. So we can start right away, get your book, and then I know you go through other aspects that we should know about, like, well, number one, aspects, elements, and modalities. So can you break down what each of those are?
Yeah, so I start out my book with what I like to call the secrets of synastry. And yeah, you got it. It's those three things: aspects, elements, and modalities. So when I'm looking at somebody's synastry, and I'll back up here. I just wanted to be clear. So there are two different ways to look at compatibility in astrology. One way is by looking at synastry, and the other one is composite. So synastry is when you take two birth charts and you overlay them and you look at the angles, or what we like to call them in astrology is aspects. So you look at, the degrees between each planet and how they kind of get along, so to say. And then composite charts takes you and another person's birth chart, and it takes the midpoint in between and it casts like a whole new chart. So there's only one set of planets, so to say, in that composite chart. So it acts like its own individual birth chart, and that's kind of like your natal chart of your relationship. So both are fantastic. Personally, for me, I use synastry. I think that it shows a little bit more because you can look and see how one person feels about the other, and then vice versa. So because there are different aspects between them. So that is definitely the first thing that I look at, is the angles and aspect between a partner, to see, do you have a lot of opposition or squares or trines? And so each of those aspects carry a different vibration or a different energy. which, I go through all of the aspects and what those mean. So it's definitely important to read the beginning of the book so that you understand that, because throughout the book, I talk a lot about aspects and how that affects your relationship and your relation and your energy in your relationship. And then the second thing I go over is elements. So there are 4 elements in astrology: earth, fire, air, and water. And those definitely, give a tangibility of energy between partners. So if you have, 2 water signs, those flow, right? You mix water and water, you know what that looks like, feels like. If you mix earth and water, water seeps into earth and gives it life. And so on and so forth. So if you have a lot of one element in your relationship, like fire, you're going to be a fiery, outgoing, exuberant couple. So I like to look at that because it definitely gives, like I said, a tangibility to your relationship. And then the final and last thing, and maybe even one of the most important ones, is modality, which is how you communicate. So there are 3 types of modality: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal are your leaders. They're people that are born at the solstices and equinox, right? Kind of the beginning of each season. So they're starters. And then you have fixed signs, which are people that are born in the center of the season. They don't like to lead. They don't like to follow. They kind of like to just do their own thing. They're very good at manifesting. They're very focused individuals. And then you have your mutable signs, which are your chameleons of the zodiac, so to say. And they are talkers and communicators and just able to exert and keep their energy in. They're kind of like a mix of all of them. So then you get your cosmic cocktail between you and your partner, and you kind of get this like mix of, energy between you two. And that's essentially what synastry is mixing those things together.
Well, can you tell us some of the characteristics of the different signs?
Yeah. So in my book, in the beginning of each of the chapters, I do go over just some generalistic characteristics of each of the 12 signs. So, I go over things about each of them that are positive, and even some things maybe that they could work on. For example, like Aries are, have this heart tugging innocence about them. They have this blind faith and raw courage. But, they can also be a little selfish and impulsive, and sometimes they don't have a very good regard to consequence. As far as like Taurus goes, I would say that they have this really wonderful patience and steadfastness about them. They have this very strength of purpose, but they're also very stubborn, and sometimes they can have lack of reason in their conviction. So their steadfastness is a double-edged sword, so to say. And then Gemini is very versatile, mentally alert. They're quick to perceive. And they're extremely flexible. They're like the chameleons or butterflies is what I like to call them of the zodiac. Expressed in their negative form, they can be very restless and unreliable, and a little deceptive. They're like the best communicators in the zodiac, so they kind of speak out of both sides of their mouths at times. Cancer is very imaginative, determined. They're tender, nurturing. They're also very cautious as well. They can be very melancholy, clingy, and even moody, right? They're ruled by the moon. So you think about the waxing and waning and changing of the moon, and that also changes Cancer's, emotions. And then you have Leo, which are, they're very gregarious and noble, strong, loyal, big and warm. They're ruled by the heart, so they have big hearts, figuratively, of course. Expressed in their negative form, they can be arrogant, a little bossy, and sometimes conceited. They are the king of and the queens of the zodiac. So there's a little bit of arrogance there at times. And then Virgo is ruled by Mercury, they have they have a lot of clarity of thoughts. They are very tasteful and courteous, and I'd say very, almost probably the most self-aware sign. They're also very critical on themselves and sometimes critical of others, though, and they can be very fault-finding. So they're the perfectionists of the zodiac for sure. And then Libra is they're intelligent, they're charming and gentle. I think they're some of the most attractive people in the zodiac for sure. They can, however, be very procrastinate. They can procrastinate a lot, and they're very indecisive. And their temperament changes, just like the scales. They're constantly looking for balance. And then Scorpio is a very powerful sign. They're, magnetic, gentle, insightful. They have a lot of self-control, but expressed in their negative form, they can be extreme. They can be revengeful and even suspicious. And then Sagittarius is, ruled by Jupiter, which is what we like to call in astrology a benefic planet. It's the biggest planet in our solar system. So they have this larger than life type of personality. They're optimistic, they're funny, bold, brave, enthusiastic. And expressed in their negative form, they can become careless, sometimes a little rude or brash, and they can't, because they lack a little bit of tact. They're just kind of get it all out there type of person. Capricorn is determined, stable, wise. They've got definitely an older soul. They are some of the hardest working people I've ever met. But expressed in their negative form, they can also be overly ambitious, and they're also the loners. I find them to be, they're, kind of like a hermit. And it's because they're very rigid, and they have very, like, if you're friends with a Capricorn, or if a Capricorn chooses you to be a friend or a partner, they're very highly selective. So take it as a compliment, which is why they can tend to be alone at times. Aquarius is definitely what I like to call them, and I mean this as a term of endearment. They're the aliens of the zodiac, right? They're individual, outside of the box, friendly, inventive, original. I think they're visionary geniuses. However, they can be very neurotic and detached, as well as absent-minded, and they are fixed energy, so they don't like to always cooperate. They like to kind of just do their own thing. And then last but not least is Pisces. They are, the last sign in the karmic wheel. So they've gone through all of the other 11 signs. So they have this spiritual awareness that no other sign has. They're compassionate, sensitive. I think that they're some of the most psychic people I've ever met. They also have a wonderful healing potential about them. They can also, though, be lazy. They have a weakness of will, and sometimes they can even find some pleasure in pain. So, they are the fish swimming in different directions, tethered by a cord. So there's always that struggle for them to swim upstream, so to say.
Can you share with us how the signs Leo and Libra would be in a relationship?
I love Libra and Leo together. There's nobody more obsessed with one another than a Leo and Libra couple. Like, it's that couple that you get around and you're like, oh my gosh, would these two stop? They're just like so, obsessed with each other, which is cute most of the time. They are aspected by a sextile. So sextile vibration in a relationship is all about friendship. So these are those couples, whenever you see a sextile couple, you're like, oh, those two are best friends. And they act like it. They act like best friends. Their elements are fire and air. So if you think about that combination, air feeds fire, right? So they are complementary to one another elementally. And then their modalities are fixed and cardinal. So, Libra, out of all of the cardinal signs, I would say is the least cardinal, right? I like to call them the iron fist and the velvet glove. So they don't lead in a really brash and outwardly way. It's like they lead in a soft way. So you don't even know you're being led, but they know exactly what they're doing. So it works out well for a fixed sign who is more stubborn and doesn't like to follow, because Libra does it in a way that's like soft and gentle and more suggesting than demanding. But Leo and Libra are definitely a spicy couple. There's a good, healthy splash of bossiness with both of them. But Libra, like I said, has a very sweet nature that comes packaged with a dash of indecisiveness. And Leos enjoy being seen, and Libras enjoy a good debate. So Leos really create the fire and Libras contribute the air. So their combined energy results in quite a few warm to hot conversational breezes between them. It's a fun energy for sure. Like I was saying, Leo loves admiration and Libra does not mind giving it. So, I think one thing that's really cool about both of these signs is their passion for justice, or so especially social justice. They both fight for the underdog. So I think that they will really connect through doing things like that together. And yeah, it's a really fun thing. I mean, I can read just like a little bit from the book. It says the last paragraph in that section is, these two will enjoy looking at each other's attractive features and listening to one another's lovely voices. Leo will love kissing Libra's dimpled smile and heeding to their musical expression. Libra always smells sweet, and their intoxicating aura will be of cotton candy hues. Libra will adore Leo's wild head of hair, their joyful laugh, and the way that they can fill the room up with their bright and golden aura. These two will never lose interest in one another, as they have always seemed to find something fascinating to talk about. Libra has loads of wisdom to share, and Leo will always make them feel like royalty. The Sun-ruled Leo will loyally protect, and Venus-ruled Libra will charmingly soothe. This pair is galactically harmonious, and just by being together, they brighten the skies. The things that they are able to manifest are marvelous, and so off they will go into the sunset together, making each other's dreams come true.
I love that. That sounds just like such a great pairing. And it's interesting because I think a lot of times people they get into relationships and they'll say, "Well, this person's really indecisive all the time. I don't know what's going on with them," or what have you. And it could be their sun sign.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be their sun sign if someone has their Mars, which is, the planet of action. If that's in Libra, that could definitely make them indecisive as well. And that's kind of, I think each sign has, their shadow side, and they also have the things that make them amazing. And knowing that about each sign creates space for compassion around it. Right. So if you are with someone who is a Libra or has strong Libra placements in their chart and they can't make a decision, understanding ways of, because Libra likes low pressure. They don't want a lot of pressure, and to pressure a Libra into a decision is a big mistake. And I know this firsthand. So, knowing that and working around that and having that awareness of your partner, I think is priceless.
Just having some really good information there, I mean, it helps all relationships. What do you want readers and our listeners to take away from your work?
Yeah, my hope with this book really and truly is just to have like a new understanding of your partner. I mean, I think that even if you've been with your partner for a long time, or even if you are, very well versed in astrology, I hope and I think that my book will be able to give you some sort of takeaway, something that you either can like laugh at, or something that you can have like an aha moment at. I think there's little bits of, like little nuggets of wisdom in here, and things that I've just learned from watching, different astrological relationships live out their charts together. And So I guess my hope is yes, to just build or create a space for compassion around your partner or having a new understanding of your partner.
Well, Desiree, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about Sun Signs in Love?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at Simply Sun Signs. I also have a website, simplysunsigns.com, and you can connect with me on either of those. I do have a book page, showing all the places that you can purchase my book, but it's really everywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it anywhere. You can also purchase it directly from my publisher, Llewellyn. So yeah, I'm very active on Instagram. I post every day. I love going over daily transits as well. So if you like looking at, the forecast for the day, you should definitely follow me at Simply Sun Signs on Instagram. And I would love to connect with everybody on there.
Well, Desiree, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Desiree. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Sun Signs in Love: Relationship Compatibility by the Stars. Sun Signs in Love is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and every place books are sold. And remember, support our indie bookstores. You can also purchase this book directly from the publisher, Llewellyn, at llewellyn.com. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after this message. I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.